Welcome to the super exciting HR Fun Time, where we talk about the most exciting subject in the world, HR. I'm Enzo, I'm the founder of Accounting Pros, and I'm here with Dan Evanoff, my HR practice leader. Say hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
We were talking the other day about a chat that I had seen in an accounting group that was really, really crazy. And I thought maybe it would be interesting to talk about it on this show. So, to give you a little bit of background, I'm not going to say anything about the name of the accounting group I was in or the name of the accountant because I don't want to dox them or anything. But they said, and I'm going to read this, I wanted to share a recent scare we had during our onboarding process that could have resulted in serious risk if we hadn't caught it in time. We extended offers to two candidates for our open full stack engineer role. Both completed video interviews, cleared background checks, and moved into onboarding last week. The first red flag came when both candidates independently requested that we ship their equipment to a different address, each claiming to be temporarily staying with a sibling out of state, and I won't name the state, despite both being based in another state. The coincidence prompted us to dig deeper. We discovered one, profile photos uploaded to our HRIS looked AI generated and didn't match their LinkedIn profiles. Two, the I-9 documentation also appeared to be fake. Three, suspicious IP activity during their system access. After piecing everything together, we made the call to rescind both offers due to suspected fraud. Has anybody else experienced similar cases? Would love to hear what others are doing to protect themselves against this new wave of impersonation, whether tools, protocols, or techniques during the interview process. Thanks, and stay vigilant out there. So I think that this is going to be happening more and more. This is something that isn't unique to the accounting industry. You know, it's something that I think is going to happen in all kinds of industries. So I'm wondering to get your take on it. Like, have you seen this? Have you heard about this kind of fraud? And like, what is it actually about? Like, what are they trying to get?
Yeah, absolutely. And more and more, I've heard about it and experienced it in the past with just remote workers and workers that were offshore, where somebody would interview, they would do great on the interview, and then the person that shows up for the first day, which was a remote position, is not the same person. So there's that type of bait and switch. And I can't even imagine where it's going at now with all of the AI functionality that everyone has access to. I'm pretty surprised that the company in question that you're talking about was able to have that IP information to be able to piece that together, because a lot of these small businesses that could be potentially hiring remote workers that are offshore for cost savings could be dealing with that exact same thing. And they're not going to have the type of tools necessary to be able to identify that as quickly as
Yeah.
this company did, and to be able to turn off the access. And basically, it's unfortunately that money is probably lost with the equipment that was shipped out, since it's not a real person. If they're not going through some type of employer of record service for an offshore worker, if they're doing it all in house, there's just a lot of parameters here that uh, we would have to, you know, be on top of in order to make sure we're mitigating that type of fraud. But yes, I have seen it. It's very different when it was prior to AI, when we were dealing with actual recruiters that were interviewing folks and think they have the perfect candidate and send these folks to their hiring manager, and the hiring manager loves them, hires them, and then they find out that the worker that they're getting is actually not able to do the job, and it's just a waste of money and a waste of time for everyone.
Yeah, so I guess it's less about like faking your skills. So this person isn't saying like I'm a senior developer and I know how to do all these, developer things. It's actually like not even the same person, which is wild. What's even weirder is that it was a person that didn't need an employer of record. It was a person in the United States just saying like I live here. Oh, ship the equipment somewhere else. And it makes me think like it has to be more than just getting free laptops. Like it seems like a really long con, like are they trying to like maybe they stole someone's identity and they're trying to like, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what they're doing. Like, why would they even do this?
I think there's lots of reasons scammers be scamming, but I do think it is a legitimate business around it. And I guess if we're looking at it from two avenues, so one, it could be a staffing pool, and they're trying to get as many of their candidates um, into positions that can be paid, and then they get that commission on those placements type of environment. And then it could just be folks that don't have a legitimate eligibility to work in the United States, so they're going that route. I think there's so many different scenarios that we could look at, and I also think this is why having e-verify is so important, especially when we're dealing with hiring in the United States, to be able to validate that those IDs are accurate from what you receive and matches the Department of Homeland Security database or Social Security Administration. But even then, you would have to make sure that you're checking whatever you receive with the actual people that are working for you, which I don't know if there's that level of detail that is taken all the way down from an HR perspective if they're not face to face with these folks.
Yeah, there's that new remote verification process that we're supposed to follow where you look at a physical copy of the identification against the person on, that's working remotely, and then you do I-9 and make sure that everybody's face matches up. But like the likelihood of many small businesses doing that, it's relatively low. I don't think that the adoption rate for E-Verify is terribly high, especially in places where it's not required. And that's just me talking out of my butt. Like maybe a lot of people are doing it, but I would say like even our clients, we struggle with getting them to send us a documentation so that we can do that. And so just from my own personal experience, it's hard, but you do see the image on the screen. So there's only, I mean, this con can only go so long if you actually do the process, right? Like it will get caught in the E-Verify process if the process is done. It's just a matter of actually doing it.
Absolutely correct. However, E-Verify only confirms the document validity, not their actual identity. So,
It's
as I was
true.
saying, if the hiring folks aren't dealing with the individual from when they actually start their first day, it could still be fraudulent. And I think that with this in mind and this coming up, it just has to have a more robust onboarding process for anyone dealing with these type of remote workers moving forward.
So I'm guessing this probably is more likely to happen in a really large organization that has maybe a separate hiring team than onboarding team. So like maybe there's not going to be as much communication and somebody just might not notice that like this person is not the same person that we interviewed, or I feel like it would be caught relatively easy if you're a totally different face than the person who interviewed that shows up for the first day, right? If you're a small business.
I would imagine yes. However, depending on how the whole situation played out, um, IDs can be forged, and if the verify process isn't there, and you have different people doing the different interview processes and onboarding processes, I could see how something could slip through the cracks. But in my experience with all of hiring, I would never have had that go all the way through, just because there are so many different folks involved, and typically there's more than one interview. I think some of these circumstances that are happening, and I've definitely dealt with some of these type of organizations where they hire on the spot because they just have such a need that they need to fill right away, and they find the perfect candidate. And typically, again, this is in remote situations, offshore situations. So I could see how this could snowball really quickly for some of these smaller businesses that are just trying to get whatever product or project off the ground and moving as fast as possible. But when you're dealing with small US businesses that are actually hiring folks in the US, this is where we really just need a solidified process across the board for hiring, selecting, onboarding, making sure that those folks are who they are, and we're doing everything that we should be doing to match their IDs to their I-9, and just being compliant. With that said, though, HR professionals and anyone that's doing the onboarding, they are not trained to be um, to identify false IDs. And I think that's beyond
Yeah.
their pay grade in general. And you just have to, unfortunately, trust the people that you're engaged with, because I would say 9 out of 10 times they are being truthful, and you're not dealing with a fraudulent candidate.
With a scammer being scammer scamming.
Correct.
Scammers be scamming. I've actually, even before the like offering even before extending an offer to an employee, like in the interview phase, I've had people interview where I can see that they're like looking and typing off the screen to get the answer for the question that I'm asking. And I'm like, just make it less obvious. Like don't Google the answer while I'm asking the question. I do think that like interview assistants or something like that might be something that we see more often as well. Like not just people faking a face, like people faking a brain, like using outside sources. And I will be the first to admit, like, I don't know everything. I use Google a lot and ChatGPT a lot in my day-to-day work. But, I'm competent enough to answer all the questions in an interview without having to Google. Like we're not asking the, most difficult questions ever. But have you ever had that happen where you're like, you're obviously not, you don't know what
Oh,
you're doing?
totally. And I think when hiring, I think it's great if someone can utilize all of the tools they have access to, because that's what we're looking for, problem solvers that can solve whatever problem comes at them. And typically that requires research, and understanding how to use Google and ChatGPT are huge value adds. But yeah, absolutely. If I'm in a hiring process and interviewing someone, I would say that a huge warning sign or a red flag is if we're having super delayed responses during the interview, or their cameras are off,
Oh, yeah.
or they are using any type of chat tools during the interview and you can see them typing. I would say automatically that would be a red flag where I'd probably halt the entire interview.
Yeah, like show me your hands.
Right.
Like don't don't type while we're doing this. Yeah, you have to like hold your hands up. I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out like what's worse, the person who's looking up like the answers to questions for the interview, or the person who shows up in bed, like or laying down on a couch taking an interview. I've had those too. I'm like, which one's actually worse in the situation? Probably the AI, because like maybe I don't know. It's crazy.
True. And especially if it's not even if you're not even dealing with a real person in the interview, I think that would
Yeah.
be the worst.
Oh my gosh, we need like an interview bingo card. Like, what are the crazy things you've seen during an interview, or I guess during the onboarding process? And adding fraudulent IDs would be on the bingo card, maybe.
I think that would be a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I I think that's great to bring up, because we have all of these different things that we could identify as a bad hire or a fraudulent hire. But I just wanted to digress a little bit. When we're speaking of interviewing, it's really funny how it's changed over the last just even 10 years. The newer generation coming into the workforce, I do notice that because everyone is mostly remote now, the interviewing is a lot less formal. I see T-shirts, I see very messy backgrounds, and it's interesting to me to see all of this. I definitely want to be able to hire for skill and not judge based off of that, but I do think appearance and everything does play a big part into it. And I just find it interesting that that has changed a lot for the younger generation coming into the workforce.
Yeah, it is a bit more casual for sure. And I will say it's not only the younger folks joining the workforce. We don't really have much of a dress code here because everybody's working from home. And usually it's just you see people from here up. But in the past, I did go into the office occasionally. This was a long time ago. And one of my employees had a shirt on that said, "I vote for vodka." And I was like, "That's a cool shirt. You cannot wear that to work. Please don't wear that." And then she came in another time wearing like a see-through shirt with like a very racy thing underneath. And I was like, "It looks lovely, but please put on real clothes."
Oh,
Not great,
well,
lady.
now you're dipping your toe into the HR realm of those conversations do have to happen.
Oh man, it was not fun. I was like, cool clothes, but after work attire only, please. So,
uh,
oh, go ahead.
Great. Well, I was just sorry I digressed, but just to bring it back to the fraudulent hires. With equipment and everything else, I think that there really does need to be a more robust process. And I would be really curious of your take on this, because when we're hiring someone, we can't really do anything until their first day, right? We can't get them set up on systems or anything, but we want them to be able to start on their first day with everything
Yeah.
in place. So I know you, for as an example, you sent laptops out to the workers prior to their start date so they have everything. So in this exact example, we have these folks that have their equipment before they show up on their first day to be able to validate that they're actually the people they say they are, the people that we've identified them to be. And one of the solutions I've been thinking about is before they or the day they start, to confirm their IDs. We have to do that anyway for the E-Verify and I-9. Um, what are your thoughts on that? Like, should we wait to send equipment before we do that?
That's a hard problem to solve. So I will say that sending equipment before the person starts is our practice, and it has also been a problem. Like we've had people that we've hired, they've signed our offer letter, they've agreed to begin, I've sent them everything they need, and then I think that their old employer finally realizes how much knowledge that person had and how much of a problem it would be if they quit, and made them an offer that they couldn't refuse. And they quit before the first day because they probably got something that was like, way better than we could offer, significantly more, because they didn't even tell us, they're like, I'm staying. So in that case, like they got everything, they weren't going to start, and now we have to have them ship it back, and it's a huge annoyance. But on the other side, it's, if they are fraudulent and we've sent all this equipment out, like maybe we never get it back because they're actually like a bad actor. So we do a few things ahead of time, and it's not going to be like completely foolproof. So we're doing background checks, and we're doing reference checks. So we're looking to make sure, like, did you work for the previous employers that you said, and get general sense. We can only ask, certain questions during the background checks or in reference checks, but trying to validate like who they are. But then, those could be fake, those also could be not real. Like maybe they hired their best friend or had their mother-in-law like vouch for them, which is tough. I am, I go and look on like LinkedIn, and I look on Facebook, and I try to find anything about a person to just sort of validate like who they are and are they the right person. I'm not really looking for things like that would bias me, because at this point we've already extended an offer, and we're just trying to like do our due diligence. Like, is this person the same? And that too, you could fake it. You can have a fake LinkedIn profile, fake whatever, things. It's sloppy work to have your LinkedIn profile and HRIS photo not match. Like if I was a scammer, I would have it all the same. I would figure out how to have it all the same. But aside from that, I'm really at a loss of how to solve for that, because like what else could you possibly do other than go to their house and knock on their door and introduce yourself, right? Like, what do you think?
So I still have to take it back to the different scenarios. If we're hiring a remote worker in the US, that's one scenario that we could go through versus a remote offshore worker. Um, I don't know, actually. I think this is a really good problem to talk about, and seeing what type of steps that we can take in order to mitigate this in real time. Uh, so, one, the fraudulent worker; two, the individual that accepts the offer but then decides not to and either ghosts us or whatever. So, all serious situations that can hamper small businesses, and definitely things that we want to look for. Um, from a fraudulent perspective, though, I would say a lot of these folks may not even have LinkedIn. I think we've experienced that together, finding people that just don't have it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people just don't want a social media presence. I can agree with that.
Yep.
But I would say, from a perspective of when we're interviewing them, if there's even a question or a gut feeling, maybe we ask to see their IDs on the call. I think that goes against protocol and maybe not be as compliant, but to validate that they are real, I think is a real concern, and something that will likely continue to come up and get even worse now that we have this AI situation. Maybe one of the solutions is just to have two separate interviews with two different people. Say two people on your team are interviewing them at two separate times, and make sure that that matches. Luckily, we're able to record a lot of things now on our video calls, so that would be an easy solution. And I think that we would hopefully be able to tell if it was AI generated from a video perspective, but I don't think that that's going to last much longer. Maybe the next 3 years we have that under our belt and then it's over.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it's not very long until you have the person who, I'm trying to think, like, maybe you do like a face filter and you try to, the interviewee looks like the person who shows up, because you've matched your face. I know, like, you can do face and body filters. I've seen those on like social media. And I look at Instagram reality on Reddit. It's like one of my favorites because it's like, look at this person. They're crazy. Like everything's different, but there's even like filters where people are moving their mouths and it looks like their face, but they've done like makeup and their features are all different. Sometimes if they like put their hand in front of their face, you can see like eyelashes or something like on the face. So maybe there's going to be some other kind of check, like, okay, run your hand across your, like, that's so weird though. Who's going to want to do that? Like, that's crazy.
I think what will likely come out of this is a whole new business venture for identifying AI use or filters. I'm sure it already exists, but being able to use it in real time or to disable if you're on a Zoom or something, that could probably work.
Yeah, like AI detection. That's so cool. That's our new $1 million idea. Like AI detection in Zoom for hiring.
I think it's real.
Yeah, but then you get a very beautiful person who has perfect features, and you're like, "That's AI. The person can't be real. A very handsome
red
person.
Flag.
Red flag. You're too pretty. You're too handsome. You don't. Yeah, I don't think so. Run your hand in front of your face."
Oh, now we have a new form of discrimination.
I know, exactly. It's going to be like what is it, like that Twilight Zone episode where everybody wanted to look like pigs or something? Maybe that was like Saturday Night Live doing
No,
an
it's
episode.
Twilight Zone.
Oh, it's Twilight Zone. Okay.
Oh, actually, you're right. It's both.
And then
both.
it's both. Yeah, they had like Pamela Anderson and she was like gorgeous and everybody thought she was so ugly. So it's going to be discrimination against beautiful people, just like Twilight Zone. It's all coming back to Twilight Zone.
Yes. Well, to step back just a minute. So we were talking about LinkedIn and checking their digital profiles. How do you feel if someone doesn't have that type of presence online? Does that raise any flags to you in this day and age?
Yeah, thanks for keeping me on topic as well, Dan. You're great at that. I'm just a meanderer. So I personally, I don't love having my entire life online. It's hard. It's hard for me to want to share things because I also know, like, some things should be private, and having a LinkedIn is a personal choice. Like maybe somebody doesn't want to have their entire work life online, and there's really nothing wrong with that. But I do think it's maybe a little odd. I'm not going to say it's going to completely discourage me from hiring somebody, but I will say, like, not having that does seem strange, especially if you're looking for a job, because employers do look for those types of profiles. So I'm sort of on the fence. Like, I personally would love to have a very private life, but I'm a professional and I need to be online and tell people that I'm a real person and not AI and all that kind of stuff. So, like, I guess I would expect that from a candidate who is in the market looking for work, whether or not it's like a completely fleshed out profile. Like maybe they don't have all their accolades on there or they don't have like recommendations. That's totally fine. But a picture and your name and what you do is probably the minimum thing I'm looking for. So, I mean, like it's not quite like bright red. It's like a pale red or like a light red flag, but it is something that would like make me think twice, like maybe this isn't a real person,
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm in the same boat. I don't think I would disqualify a candidate for not having an online presence, but I would definitely question it.
Yeah. It's a hard time that we live in. Like we should be afforded privacy, but at the same time, like we have to live in the modern world with all this stuff, like ugh, whatever. Plus, like the more videos I put online, the more fakes are going to be put out, like people
Right.
can dupe my voice and then call my employees and say, hey, this is Enzo. Give me all the money from my bank account. I mean, and yeah, give me all the money into this different bank account. And yeah, totally real person here. That's why everybody needs a password, right? Okay, I won't go off on that tangent.
Well, I think that's a super important one. And I wish we had that video to play of that individual who, what happened? He got a call from his CFO or his CEO and asked him to join an emergency meeting. And there were 4 other of his work colleagues, like leadership positions, all on the call. And the CEO asked him to wire, I think it was $50,000 or something like
Oh,
that. And he did it because everyone was on the call and they didn't find out it was fake for about a week and a half, and that money was long gone.
oh my God, that's so scary. That is so scary. I actually do have like passwords that I have with people that in my life, and they're all different, and no one's gonna guess them because they're very complicated, or not, or not. Maybe they're easy. You'll
Oh
never
man.
know.
I, you should just tell us now. It'd be fun.
No, 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 no way. What is it like? My husband sent me a funny meme the other day. It was like, "What's your cat name? Like your social security number, or no, your credit card number is the first name. The middle name is the funny 3-digit code, and the last name is your zip code."
Oh
It's
my
like, okay,
goodness.
everybody's gonna use all my credit cards now.
Well,
Oh, wait.
I do think that this is a very serious topic, though. It gets beyond just fraudulent hires because there are so many bad actors out there that are using this technology to scam people. It's just surprising that it is entering into the workforce as well, and things we have to deal with moving forward, and what these businesses are going to do. I do think you're right. I do think it happens a lot more with larger organizations. Even though they have processes in place, there are so many people and so many moving parts that I think it is a little bit easier to, I don't know, crack the system. I think there are more tools in
Yeah.
place now that can mitigate that, but I think it still does happen. With smaller businesses, I think they have to be the ones that are worried the most if they're dealing with like developers and things like that, because those are the ones that I think you're going to deal with that are more offshore versus a US worker that may be fraudulent. Although, as we're discussing and telling these stories, it is both.
Yeah, it's definitely both. I feel like it's hard to protect yourself. And even like when we have hired people in the Philippines before, and we used a company that did all the background checks and like checked on their references and everything. And at that point, I'm really relying on them to do that due diligence. So like they really have to have their protocols in place. But I think, you've got a couple good pieces of advice. So verifying governmental IDs, like even if you're feeling a little bit weird, have them maybe show it to you during the call if you're not sure, I guess. Live interview, like video interviews where they're where their face is on camera. So not like a telephone interview or anything like that, right? That's the other piece. And then
Definitely.
multiple interviews. That was the other thing.
I would say, yeah, at least two video calls, perhaps with two different folks on your team. I think it could just be you if you're the one that's hiring, but if you can have two, I think that that is key. Um, and then just making sure that if you do hire them, that everything matches, and if anything raises that tickle in your stomach that something seems weird, maybe you should pull the plug, or at least take it to the next step to really identify who these folks are. I think the first story you told, by being able to identify their IP address, I know a lot of businesses aren't going to have this access, small businesses, but maybe you can speak to that a little bit from your perspective. Is that something that folks can put that type of technology in place to be able to identify so they know where their folks are actually working if they say they're working in one location? And I'm sure that
Yeah.
that's another piece of this.
Yeah, so I mean during the interview process, I don't know if it's possible, but I'm going to say maybe. Like I can check my Zoom logs. I have access to like all the reports and everything in the administrative like background. So perhaps being able to see what the IP address of the person who was actually on the call, like on their side, could be it. Um, for IP addresses like doing the work, you can limit the IP address in like LastPass or other tools where you can say like you can only log in using this IP address. So if somebody moves around a lot, that could be something, or even like trying to think of other things. Yeah, there's some limitations that you can put in, like security protocols that you can put in place, but that's really like after the interview and when you hire them. So I'd say like during the interview process, I'd be interested in looking at Zoom to see if that's something that they report on, because I'm sure they do. Otherwise, there's got to be a way to fact check IP addresses. Like we live in 2025. Like there's got to be technology out there for that for sure.
Definitely. The only problem I could see coming up with that is privacy laws, though. Like, do you really have to know where I am?
Yeah, I do. So with us, if we move around a lot, like if I'm working at my office today and I'm working at a coffee shop tomorrow, that could pose a problem for our accounting clients. Like if we're logging into bank accounts, we typically have our own access. But if we are in locations and change around a lot, it could seem like we're doing something weird. Like if we're traveling, we might get locked out. So we use a VPN that's called Tailscale, and we have our own instance on a Linux server that my nerdy husband built for us. Thanks. And it's hosted on Amazon or AWS. So when we log into our VPN, it's a static IP address so that we don't get kicked out of our clients' accounts. And with that, like, it's been really helpful. And we required even like, going to airports, going to coffee shops for like man in the middle attacks. So we don't have information stolen on fake Wi-Fi routers or whatever. And hopefully I don't sound like a nerd talking about this, or if I'm saying it wrong,
Very
sorry.
real. It's very real.
It's very, and I mostly understand it. But we have our own security protocols in place. Like you have to work in the same location, or if you go somewhere else, you have to use a VPN. So like there is a good reason to make sure that you know where your workers are located. So that is necessary, at least for our industry. During the interview process, like, do I need to know their IP address? Maybe not. I mean, someone might say that's too much information, but we're going to ship them their equipment. Like we're going to know their address like in a matter of days if we make them an offer. So I don't know. I think there has to be some, if it's not against the law, which I don't know if it is, I think that could be something that we request if we're feeling weird about it, because like we have a right to know that you're not a fake person and you're not saying that you're in the US and you're really, I don't know, in another country.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that these protocols need to be put in place to avoid this moving forward. I mean, you're hiring people to work for you that you've never met. It really is your job to understand who they are and making sure that they're a legitimate person that you're hiring, that matches who they say they are. And if you're just doing it to move, if you're skipping steps to move fast, you're going to put yourself in a lot of harm. And I think that the hiring aspect of all of this is super critical for any business.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me think like this is probably going to be something that's going to be required moving forward, like as AI progresses, because we handle a lot of confidential information. Like we see our clients' banking information, and there's a lot of PII we crosses through our desks or online, whatever. And we do background checks and reference checks because we have a duty to protect our clients' information. And we use a VPN because we have a duty to make sure that like we're not opening ourselves up to cybersecurity issues. So doing your due diligence about whether a person is real or not, or the person that you expect to be hiring. I mean, all that is part of our due diligence and is, I think, going to be necessary. So I guess I'm on the fence of like, or on the side of the fence, like this may not be something that we're doing, all the way today, but I think that sooner rather than later, we're probably going to have to start doing like real or AI sort of interviews, like, or, making sure this person is actually real, because it is going to be, we're living in a weird time. Like things are changing so fast. Feels crazy, but yeah, this is going to be something we have to do. Yeah.
And I mean, the level that we're evolving technologically, just every month, I agree with you. And I think one is putting processes in place that we can mitigate these. But then part two to that is really training our hiring teams to make sure that they're following these processes and able to identify these type of red flags. Because as we talked about earlier, these folks aren't typically the hiring folks aren't typically the ones that are working with these individuals day to day. So need to make sure that it's caught up front versus down the line when more risk can be, I guess, impacting to the business.
Yeah. Gosh. HR is so hard. Hiring is so hard. Ugh. But it's also very interesting because like we get to talk about these things that just new problems every day. HR, everyone's favorite subject.
Everyone's. It impacts everyone.
That's why
people
we're part
are
of
people.
The super exciting HR fun time. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining me today and for talking about this interesting issue. I would like to hear if anybody else has had issues in their hiring process. Like, have you had somebody that isn't the right person like show up for the job? Have you caught fraud before it actually happened? I mean, did you like what happened? Because I know that other people are seeing this. And what have you done in order to mitigate this if it's happened to you, or if you're like already on top of it? I want to hear what you're doing because we want to get best practices to share with everybody. So yeah, please do. Please share in the comments if you've got something, some juicy information to share.
Love that. Perfect.
All right. See you later.